Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition on a gorgeous Thursday afternoon in Nashville. Of course, brought to you by
Only in Nashville, apparently. It's a little dreary up here in Goodlettsville.
Oh, that's no good. Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group, our two awesome local sponsors here on a football show. That's Zach Lyons, everybody. Hello, Zach. How are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. My name is Braden Gall. Of course, you can get to me on Twitter machine at Braden Gall, at FWordsPod, and subscribe to Stacking the Inbox. Really cool stuff with Sinkers. We'll get to that in just a minute. The reigning defending champs, Zach, of Nashville Liquor Stores, named best liquor store in the city in 2022. They also have a sister store up in Hendersonville, Bluegrass. So make sure if you're in that area, apparently where the weather is not all that great, make sure you go shop at Bluegrass. And if you're down here in downtown, make sure you check out Sinkers. Uber Eats. Search Sinkers.
They drive so you could drink. Are you just not going to set it up? I mean,
I got to keep you on your toes. You on your toes. We'll give you some more information.
I knew that's what you were going to angle for when you kind of went silent. So I was going to make you signal. I'm going to make you eat up the dead air and cause it.
It does make so if you know anything about me, you've ever been around me, my wife knows this about me. Like if I am sitting in silence around other humans at any point in a room, at a bar, on a live stream podcast, if I am sitting in a room with other humans and it's silent, just know that I'm dying inside. Like I can't handle the silence. It just like my anxiety just starts to ratchet up. So it makes me very uncomfortable. Well done, Zach. I'm already off kilter. It's a main topic on the show today. Before we tell you about how you can get tickets to our exclusive first round NFL draft watch party, courtesy of Sinkers. Main topic on the show, we've talked a lot, Zach. Every single week, almost every show, there's a new angle on trading up to draft a quarterback. The Titans continue to interview all these quarterbacks, doing their diligence. We've covered every quarterback from every possible angle. What we have not really done on the show is discuss the actual act of trading up to draft a quarterback and how successful it has been. 31 times a team has traded up in the first round to draft a quarterback in the modern era, which is 1970 until today. And we've got all the data. We've got all 31 trades. We'll take a look at all of them, which ones worked, which ones didn't, which ones are comparable to where the Titans are at in this current situation. We'll get into all of that. So a deep dive, as it were, on a football show. So that's going to be the main focus of our conversation today. We'll touch on a couple of news topics. There was a leak from ESPN. Matt Miller suggested maybe the Titans are taking an edge rusher at number 11, and that the trading is not really coming from inside the building. It's not inside the house. The phone call is not coming from inside the house yet. We'll get to that. And then, of course, Jeffrey Simmons' press conference as well. So other than that, what'd you guys do on F-Words? Tell everybody about what you got on F-Words and Stacking the Inbox.
We just kind of like went off crazy in the in football under the F-Words. You know, I kind of came in a little hot coming off the links after going no bogey, all pars and birdies.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean it was a scramble, but I mean,
oh, okay.
I did some of the work. And so we came in hot. We talked about all kinds of different things. I mean, we just kind of went. We didn't even get through all of our topics because we went through other topics that we had planned, and we talked about why Big Jeff's contract's not that difficult to maneuver around and be able to actually pay more. We've talked about, draft strategies. We talked about the different quarterbacks. I kind of went down this little rabbit hole of comparing CJ Stroud to Sam Darnold. So,
oh, wow.
I got to go through this stuff. That's why you got to go listen.
We're all working through it together. So we'll get Sam Darnold on this list, of course. Darnold on this list. Zach did all the drinking yesterday, according to D Good, which I'm assuming you knocked a few in and knocked a few back. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I did.
So, that is the only way one should play golf. That is for sure. The link to purchase draft party tickets is now in the chat. I have successfully, as a 40-year-old man, copied a link and pasted it into the YouTube chat. It's on the YouTube chat, so make sure you go to the YouTube page. It'll also be in the show.
Currently in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions.
Oh, there you go. See, it's also in the descriptions. Look at us using technology. So it is. We have not posted this like publicly. We don't send it out. This is for you guys who are loyal listeners who come to the link from this show, who are listening and watching the show. We want to hang out with people who love the Titans, who enjoy this product, who want to hang out with Zach and get all of his takes in real time. So we're going to have some cool stuff for you. We'll do some trivia, some competition stuff there to try to project the top 10 picks. All you can eat, all you can drink, of course. Catered by Jaspers, beverages by Sinkers. Really cool private event space there in Wedgwood, Houston, off 4th Avenue, and it's going to be a ton of fun because all the money will go to charity. Our Kids Center here in Tennessee, the 3rd largest charity of its kind, protecting and helping take care of sexually abused children. So all for a good cause. It's going to be a great time. I only think we have like 10 tickets left. So
the link
is in the show notes. And we know most of you are coming, so we're super excited about that. So check it out, Sinkers.
I have no clue who's coming, so besides you and Stoney and Joe. So I like to be surprised, though. I'd rather be surprised.
Other members of the Fantasy League as well are coming. So this is for the loyalist of most loyal listeners, and that's why you join the in crowd at Sinkers, of course, as well. You get cool insider tips, allocations, potential trips to fancy tastings and things of that nature. So check out Sinkers, as well as the Kingston Group, Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. No, Buck's mom is not coming, although I would love to hang out with Buck's mom. That sounds weird, but I promise you it's not. I think she worked for like the Carter administration. I would love to just pick her brain about her career is what I meant. So
she's in the political realm.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. She's
probably had a few people killed.
This Sinkers and Kingston Group 440 Sports not condoning the opinion of Zach Lyons that Buck Rising's mother had someone killed. That is
just how the government works, man. It's how the United States government works. You just don't know what's going on behind those scenes.
Jimmy Carter.
Listen, if you watched Born Identity, you would be up on this. You'd be all up in this.
Okay. All right. I do love the Born series. Robert Ludlum, great writer. Okay. Kingston Group, by the way, as I was talking about, Kingston Group, go if you have any home needs, renovation, custom home, buying or selling, talk to the Kingston Group. Great and amazing people here in town. They'll take care of you. Okay, real quickly, just a couple of notes here that are really short, and then we'll get to the mainstream, the bigger conversation today about quarterbacks and trading up to get them. Jeffrey Simmons has his announcement press conference for we don't have like 100% of the details of the contract.
It was like hardly any details. Now, Jared Stillman put out details, but if you start adding up all Jared Stillman's numbers, none of them add up to anything that he said. Like, it is the worst tweet or contract ever, because I went through and I started double checking it and started adding stuff together, and it was all off. I mean, he's off everywhere. He said he had a copy of the contract. Now it's per his source. It's just, there's no contract numbers out there. And your audio just went down, so it's just me talking right now. Your audio is down. Can the listeners hear me at least? If you could make sure that you put it in there and say that you can at least hear me or hear Braden, that'd be great. D good. So anyway, okay, so D good can hear me, but he cannot hear you. I'm assuming. So not very good details. So I don't know why you just don't do it instead of trying to tell me you're doing it, since I can't hear you. So just get off the screen. There we go. So he'll come back in a second. Thank you for listening, sticking with us. Big Jeff talked about his contract at a press conference, and guess what? I got no takeaways from it, and this would make Braden so mad that I'm just going to go out on a limb and just say it.
There we go. See, I just did it.
Next time that happens, just leave. You don't have to start signaling with smoke screens or stuff.
Yeah, I know. All I thought about was how I thought Stillman was still dead, though, during your rant there, because I thought Jim Wyatt murdered him in his last mailbag. So I didn't know. I didn't think he was still alive, tweeting and talking on the radio. So I'm sure whatever you said, an amazing point about that was posted on. Sure, may or may not be back now.
You're back out. You're out.
For me.
Yeah, you're going in and out. I don't know what's going on over at the Braden Gall household anymore. But anyway, if you got any large takeaways from the Big Jeff contract, you got at least one more than me. The big the press conference and stuff. I took nothing away from it. It was unexciting, uninspiring. But hey, at least he's here. That's really all I care about. At least he's here. At least he's playing for the Tennessee Titans. I guess you could say one good takeaway is that him and the relationship with owner Amy Adams Strunk is very strong. Too bad she didn't build that same kind of relationship with AJ Brown, I guess. But, it is what it is. That's in the past, and we're looking forward to the future, and we're building around Big Jeff. And there you go. That is your Big Jeff press conference talks. So I'm going to move right on along. I'll carry this show if I have to. It wouldn't be the first time I've done a show. Matt Miller today put out and ESPN put out a what are we hearing article and all this kind of stuff. And they basically put out something about what the beat writer thinks the Tennessee Titans are going to do. And then he puts out something with the team talking about essentially what do we think or what are we hearing from other teams, from other NFL execs about this team. And in the article, this is what he writes. He writes, Matt Miller says, that everyone outside Tennessee thinks they'll trade up, but no one in the organization is saying it directly. ... or yet. Tennessee is considering several positions in round one, and the most common scenario shared among NFL sources is Tennessee staying at number 11 and aiming for a pass rusher. Now, this is from NFL league sources, NFL execs. Ultimately, I would be very surprised unless the pass rusher is like Will Anderson, maybe Nolan Smith, that they're really going to go for pass rusher. I think the first part of it with the quarterback thing is the Titans aren't coming out and saying they're trying to trade up yet, but they're trying to trade up. It's not directly, it's indirectly. So that's where we're at right here in the fact that, does anybody believe this? Maybe they're going to go with edge. Let's see if he's back. Are you back?
My dongles, man. I blame Steve Jobs altogether. So
they all dongles. I've already moved past the Big Jeff talk, by the way.
All right, good.
I just breezed right through
it. They all love each other, and I think it's great that Amy Adams Strunk sent him a nice text message.
Yeah, if only she done that for AJ Brown. If she would have built her relationship up with AJ Brown.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So edge at number 11. Again, I apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties. My little adapters all fucked up. I need to buy a new one. So I
just
apologize.
Keep you updated. I've already read the quote. I've already talked about the quarterback, and I've already talked about the edge positions of whether it's Nolan Smith, maybe Nolan Smith, but Will Anderson. I just don't see that there being a guy at 11 that they desperately have to have.
Well, and I don't think it's terrible to go that position at that spot in the draft. I think there's tons of value.
I think with the players that are going to be there, it is.
Maybe. I guess if you just go independently and just say, all right, if they take an edge rusher with one of their first two picks, or they trade back and take an edge rusher, or that's the position that they are targeting in general, I don't really have that big of a problem with it. It's not
specifically sticking at 1.11 to draft an edge, and it's Will Anderson or the upside of crazy town lying son of a bitch Nolan Smith.
Is he the only guy you like there after the top, Tyree Wilson? After those
I'm
guys,
not really in on Tyree Wilson. Lucas Van Ness is trash. He's the most overrated player in this draft, and I've thought he's been the most overrated player in this draft. Brian Breesy, I'm out. I mean, there's no other edge rushers there specifically that I would think that is worth 1.11.
Miles Murphy had every single team in the NFL at his pro day, or whatever it was. I listen. We said last week or Monday on the show, Jackson Smith and Jigba is where we've landed.
Almost every team goes to every pro day. They have at least one representative.
Sorry, I meant there was a lot of hubbaloo or what's the right word? I just think I thought it was an interesting take from Miller. He generally is pretty well connected. He pretty much knows what's going on. I thought the trade conversation was interesting. The quarterback stuff, the stuff you already addressed when my technical difficulties were.
But I mean, basically, he's just saying that they haven't came out and said that they're doing that directly, which means that, hey, guess what? Right. They're doing it directly.
Exactly. I mean, listen, I wouldn't be surprised. Frankly, there's offensive line, receiver, corner, edge. That's where you get value in the draft. Is at that position, in that early teens. That's where value is to be had. is those positions. So I'm not really surprised about any of those, because especially some of those are a position of need, or maybe a layered position of need at corner, for example. So I don't really think there's, it is what it is. We'll keep an eye on it. I thought it was interesting that the trade talks are from outside the building. I thought that was of note. If that is actually true, then I think it's super interesting that there's no source right now inside the Titans saying that they're going to trade up. So I think that's interesting. So with that in mind, brought to you by Sinkers and the Kingston Group. All the technical difficulties brought to you by Sinkers and Kingston Group here on a football show. With that in mind, does trading up for a quarterback actually work? That is the question. And I've got basically 31 trades since 1970, which is the modern NFL draft, have taken place in the first round for a team to go up and get a quarterback. And before we get into some of these names and how we're going to label them and then ultimately land on a conclusion, I would like to ask your opinions on some of the trends. Of the 31 trades, only 3 of them took place before 1998. So from 1970 to 1998, that's basically the first 30 years of the modern draft. Only 3 times did a team trade up to get a quarterback. 1975, Steve Bartkowski. 1979, Steve Fuller. And 1990, Jeff George. Obviously, Jeff George is pretty good. Steve Bartkowski did play for like 9 years, and Steve Fuller was but only 3 times, which means it's happened 28 times since Ryan Leaf in 1998. What do you make of that trend in particular, Zach?
Well, I think it's trading up for a quarterback is just very rare in general, just because the teams at the top in the position to draft the quarterback are the ones that need the quarterback. It just so happens to be that these last 2 years has been Trayvon Walker and the Bears, who already have Justin Fields. So the Jaguars already had Trevor Lawrence, and then this. And then the last one before that, I believe, was Jared Goff, when the Titans had the number 1 overall pick and they traded up. So it's very different because of how teams now in the NFL, basically back in the day, it was running the ball and defense, right? Like, that's how you won games. That's who your successful teams were. Yeah, you pass, and yeah, you had a couple of high-flying offenses, but generally that's what it was. So the people that were generally up at the top were the ones that didn't have the quarterback, and
Right.
and really the quarterback value has grown over time as more teams become more athletic everywhere. You need a quarterback that could take advantage of your personnel's athleticism.
And I think, to your point, the game going more offensive, the rules going more offensive. I think the fact that we have more analytics and coverage of these players gives us what we think is maybe more knowledge about these players. I mean, look at you. We were on the S2 bandwagon way before the national media caught up to the S2 stuff. And frankly, half the league is not yet on the S2 stuff. And now this diagnostic mental processing is all the rage. And that's just more information to try to better accurately project players. And so therefore, if you think you found your guy, you're probably more likely to go up and get him. In the last 7 years, it has happened 13 times. So out of 31, 13 of them have happened in the last 7 years since 2016, which would include both Wentz and Goff in that particular season.
Have to have a quarterback.
2016. So I think it's all these different market forces going. And I think, and you've said this a lot, like, people overvalue future picks to some degree. And if you think you found your guy, as we've said all along, go get him. And so I think all this combined means teams are more willing to go up and get draft picks. Now, what's interesting in a very broad sense, I think when the NFL first realized that this was the right strategy, let's call it 2004, 5, or 6-ish, around then.
I don't know. I almost think that the Goff strategy is, I almost think it's like the Goff timeline split, the Goff Nexus event. Like, okay, I think that's the real one. And or maybe the Redskins trading up for RG3 was like the idea of we have to, because that's the same year they also drafted Kirk Cousins. You know, they traded up for RG3, then draft Kirk Cousins later round. That's a Shanahan, team over there, right? Like, Kyle Shanahan was over there, and they were trying to find a quarterback. They would rather draft 2 quarterbacks and just let him duke it out and end up being Kirk Cousins was the better one.
So, and I think what's interesting is there's a difference between going from, there's a lot of these guys that have teams that have traded from the second round into the last 5 to 10 or 12 picks of the first round. And almost all those guys have been bust with the exception of Lamar Jackson.
Right.
We'll
right.
get to
That's
that.
why they were way down there. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get to that. But I do think I would go back to 2009 because the Jets traded from 17 to 5 to get Mark Sanchez. That's the third pick in the draft. So they went from middle teens up to the top 3, which is kind of, it's not exactly where the Titans are, but close-ish. And the 5 or 6 times before that, which would have been, other than Michael Vick in 2001, which was the Falcons going from 5 to 1 to go get him, you had Kyle Bowler, J.P. Lossman, Jason Campbell, Jay Cutler, Brady Quinn, Joe Flacco, and then in 09 was Josh Freeman and Mark Sanchez. And then there was another 7 or 8 years of busts. And then in 2016, the last 13 of these is when you start to see the benefits pay off. So it does feel like in the last 7 years, more has happened, but more have been successful if you look at who they were.
Yeah, I think there's more teams in that time frame from like 2016, 2022, because I've kind of talked about it this year a little bit. Is like, I don't expect the trend of teams desperately needing quarterbacks to continue, because eventually between this draft class and next year's draft class and how contracts have been laid out these last few years, almost everybody's going to have a pretty close to a top tier quarterback, or at least above average one. Now you're just going to be battling age, right? Like, how old is my quarterback before I try to get rid of him? But is it really the right time to get rid of him? And then contracts. Like, I feel like the amount of teams, the bubble's about to burst for the quarterback market in the sense of supply and demand.
I think that's a really interesting take, because I think you could have said that maybe about some of these guys we're about to talk about. And then after the 4th or 5th year, everyone realizes, oh, that guy's not it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, and maybe there's a few of those guys right now in the league where we think somebody could be a starter. Again, Trey Lance might be one of them. He's undecided. We don't know if that was a good decision by the Niners or not so far.
But they got Brock Purdy, so it really doesn't matter, right? Like, when you're talking about, when you're talking specifically about the quarterback market, okay, if Trey Lance isn't the guy there because he doesn't know that he can't come to terms with himself balding and is trying to cling to these little hairs on his head, and Brock Purdy's the guy, then it doesn't matter if Trey Lance. It matters in the term of what we're talking about, but does not matter in the terms of the market, because then you still have Brock Purdy and he's going to be your guy for a while. And he kind of proved that he could be the guy in a quarterback friendly system.
I guess maybe I probably picked a bad example there. What I mean is that there are guys right now that we might think are in quote unquote starters, entrenched as starters, maybe even getting paid pretty well, that 3 years from now may be, you know, because again, a lot of these guys that we may call quote unquote busts or just guys that were traded up for, I mean, a lot of them started 48 games, 65 games, 73 games before we kind of realized as an NFL collective, oh, this isn't it. This is not going to be the guy. So maybe there's a few of those in the NFL. Like Daniel Jones comes to mind, right? Like,
and they just paid him though.
So they just paid him, but like maybe 3 years from now, after 6 or 7 years in the league, we realize he's not it. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. We just don't know.
I mean, there will always be like 1 or 2 teams. I just don't know if there's going to be like, obviously this year, there's a copious amount of teams that could technically use a quarterback, but those that don't get a quarterback this year are probably going to be in the market for the quarterbacks in next year's draft.
Right.
And then next year, I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams that need a quarterback next year. When you really think about it, maybe I'll do that as an exercise coming up soon after the draft is over, and look at projecting out who is going to need a quarterback and when, and see what the market looks like.
Well, Titans could be at the top of the list next year, potentially.
They're at the top of the list right now.
They might be. So let me throw out the first category here, which is undecided. We just don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have enough data. And there's of the 31 that have been. I mean, frankly, I'm going to remove the old 3 as well, like the guys before 1998. And if you want to,
I mean, I'm with you. Like, here's the thing. Let's do the last 10 years to 15 years max, just because that really it's just the last 10 years. I'm kind of like over. I know that people in college love to do this. There, for data and historical context, like for data purposes, it's like 10 years, man. Like it is a 10-year cutoff in the NFL because the NFL evolves almost every 10 years.
I think that's fair. I was going to start with Michael Vick in 2001 and just call it 20 years, and because that's where the vast majority of all these
Well,
trades
he's
have happened.
awesome. So there you go.
And he works, but there's only 4 before that: Ryan Leaf, Jeff George, Fuller, and Bartkowski. So I'm going to remove those 4.
Yeah.
Vick is a star. I'm going to say Vick is a star. Are you okay with me calling him a star quarterback
for
in the
sure.
NFL? Okay. So the category of undecideds are Justin Fields, who the Bears feel pretty decided about, apparently.
Yeah, I feel pretty decided about it too, but in the opposite way, they feel decided about it.
Trey Lance, which is a complete unknown. We don't know. And Jordan Love for the Packers, which is a complete unknown.
I think Jordan Love is the most undecided out of all those guys. I go back and forth on Trey Lance, right? Because I want Trey Lance over Malik Willis, but I don't really want Trey Lance as a franchise quarterback, right? Like I don't want to hinge my hopes to Trey Lance as a franchise quarterback because availability matters. Experience throwing the ball matters, and he just doesn't have those things. So I almost want to just like, I know it's probably a little early to write him off, but I'm like way on that line of just saying, yeah, I'm good on Trey Lance. Like,
so, and I can totally see that line of thinking. I still think there's plenty of opportunity. If you're on the 8-year Geno Smith plan, then Trey Lance still has a chance.
Geno's was more of like he kind of sucked. It wasn't that he couldn't stay healthy, right? I mean, like, isn't there a little bit of a difference there?
Sure. I just mean it's too early to make any.
Hairline
still strong.
Still strong.
Strong
enough.
Is there any direct? Can you do a stack in the inbox direct correlation of follicle challenge versus athletic success in the NFL?
Gosh, I don't know if I've seen an NFL player that has that bad of hair. like it is bad. Like,
yeah, it's bad.
How do you look in the mirror and say, "That's it, bud. That's it. This is the look I'm going for today."
Well, so you talk a lot about not being super tall, and I have to, as someone who does not enjoy my follicle situation, and looking at your handsomely coiffed hair, I'm not one to talk about people's hairlines. Is what I'm
but
saying.
At least you're wearing a hat. I mean, like, could he not throw on a hat or something? Like,
it's a valid point. So
why would you even not tell them to delete that? Hey, man, delete that picture. Let me go grab a hat or something. Let me fix this.
You would think players have a little bit more control over the social media department, but all right. So of the 31 trades, 4 are too early. We're not counting them.
Yeah.
3 are undecided. So that's 7 down out of the 31. We're down to 24 trades total, including Michael Vick in 2001, to look at. I count 5. Here's the interesting category. The most interesting category for me is that the vast majority, the largest chunk of these guys, these dudes, are all just guys. There's a handful of busts we'll get to.
Ryan Tannehill guys, or are they
worse?
Ooh, okay, so what would be a worse Ryan Tannehill?
Mark Sanchez.
Comparison? Okay,
worse
so
it's worse.
I was trying to do something now, like Baker Mayfield's.
Okay, all right. But Baker Mayfield's not on the list, so
I know. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to give the people a comparison.
Carson
in
Wentz.
Today's world. Well, he's unemployed.
He's not as good as Ryan Tannehill. Somebody traded up to get him. His team won a Super Bowl, and he had some good years. He started 92 games.
And he was the reason they were even in position to get a Super Bowl, because that was a year they were talking about MVP Carson Wentz.
The point I was bringing up is that the largest category over the last 22 seasons of drafts, the largest group, give or take a little bit of leeway, good or bad, is just guys that just started and were not elite, but didn't suck. There's a handful of total busts and there's a handful of rock stars. But the biggest category of quarterbacks that have been traded for are guys who just kind of started 70-ish games. Some of them got to the playoffs. Some of them didn't.
Of that's the quality of the draft class too. Like, it was Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, right? Like, if Jared Goff is your number one guy and the team in the number one spot already traded up to get him, and you're still a team that needs a quarterback, you kind of have to trade up to get Carson Wentz. Like, because he's the guy, right? I mean, it's like it's Goff, then Carson Wentz.
So I'd like to know who you would consider successes, stars, worth the trade up, because I have only 5 times out of these 24 trades, and really out of the 31 total, would I call like a star was acquired and a guy who could win a Super Bowl, and Flacco technically is on this list, but not on the list, if you know what I mean.
Well,
Which one?
he deserves to be on there. I mean, he gave them a lot of good years, and he got him a Super Bowl. Like, I feel like if you got the Super Bowl, then the trade up was worth it. How could it not be worth it?
That, especially when you went from 26 to 18.
Yeah.
To go get the quarterback at the time.
You didn't have. I don't even think they had to give up that much. I mean, they're trading up for the kid from Delaware. They probably the team they called like, yeah, we'll take a little bit extra.
They swapped first,
Yeah.
and then they gave up a third and a sixth. And they got Joe Flacco, who started for over a decade.
And got a fucking Super Bowl
and Super Bowl. So, but he's not a star. But yes, worth it. Totally worth it.
I think that though. He's not a star, but I mean, he became a household name. He got paid a lot of money, and he got you a bunch of winning seasons. He got you a competitive year, and he got you a Super Bowl. That is a success.
And his career, and this is the irony of Joe Flacco being on this list, his career statistics are virtually identical on a per game basis to Ryan Tannehill. Yeah. Virtually identical. So here's the stars. To me, Buffalo went from 12-7 to get Josh Allen, superstar. Lamar Jackson, 32nd pick, so a little unusual, but they went from 52 to 32 in 2018, got Lamar Jackson. Kansas City went from 27-10 to draft Patrick Mahomes, obviously superstar. Where do you fall in Deshaun Watson? The 25-12, Deshaun Watson on the field in his time in Houston.
To me, Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson are like in a tier in between it's like almost the unachieved or the underachieving stars. Like, to me, they are underachieving. See, that's kind of like I would say that it's trading up for Joe Flacco. The reason why I keep going back to that is because isn't what he did totally worth the trading up for? And I know he's technically not a superstar, but there's a good chance Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl. So which trade was really better? Does it really matter that they're superstars, or does it matter about the success?
Because
he was a franchise quarterback, right? 2008 all the way to 2018. I mean, you got 10 years out of him in a Super Bowl.
He started 163 games. Now, I think Joe Flacco is absolutely there's probably a difference between worth the trade, smart.
We probably should have hammered this part out a little bit.
Well, we there's a bunch of different categories here, and I think this is part of the fun conversation. Is like where do all these guys? Because again, like.
Because he meets everything, right? He was a young guy. He was a franchise quarterback. He won a ton of games, and he's a Super Bowl. How is that not considered a superstar of his time?
I mean, I think people are like, oh, he's just clearly, obviously not as good as Patrick Mahomes, but who is?
Well, yeah, but right. I mean, like Josh Allen would be the closest guy on this list as good as Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, I think Deshaun.
Michael Vick, but he didn't get a Super Bowl.
So I have Allen, Mahomes, Watson, Vick, and Lamar as the 5 sort of superstar talents that were acquired.
You would almost have a Vick tier. Like it's Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson are on their own separate tier. They were obviously young, electric franchise quarterbacks, but they never achieved the ultimate success.
I think that's fair to say. And Watson is so complicated because it was worth the trade up.
Really just turned it
right. It was clearly worth the trade up had he been the Deshaun Watson that we all thought he was. And he on the field, he was great. He was elite. They won divisions. They played in playoff games. Like he had a career path of being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, top 7, top 5, whatever, if he wasn't this other person, apparently. And then it would be totally worth it. But can you predict that out? You know, and again, I'll be very clear about Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was beloved by all humans in the college sports world, media, fans, coaches. Like, this is a guy that everyone raved about. He was giving tons of money to charity and doing charity work in the Houston area for years. Like, a lot of this was a huge surprise for a lot of people that were around him at Clemson and other places. So I think it's worth the trade up for Houston. It just didn't deliver the way I think the talent.
It almost becomes now, is it worth the trade up, or is it worth the trade for the Browns? Was it worth the trade up for what they didn't have to give up a lot, right?
No, they went from 25-12 and gave up 2 first-round picks, including the one at 25.
Yeah.
So they gave up one extra
pick. Not really bad for what you got out of Watson. Yeah. I mean, I would in hindsight, I would still make that trade.
I agree. BH2 asks, how is Allen a tier above those other guys? I think pure talent, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are above everybody else. Pure talent.
And I would still put Josh Allen underneath Patrick Mahomes, obviously.
Sure.
But the trade up for Josh Allen was a drop in the bucket. They did it twice, and they gave away a player in that, Cordy Glenn. But other than that, they really did not trade a lot of draft picks for Josh Allen at the end of the day, because the first trade that they did were just position swaps. They didn't even throw in an extra trade. And I believe the second trade only took an extra second. So it's like, if you're talking about in terms of is it worth it? It is totally worth it for Josh Allen.
Yeah, there's no question. If they went from 12 to 7 through various maneuvers.
Josh Allen win a Super Bowl before Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson as well, in my head, and projecting it out.
Yeah, I think that's totally normal. They gave up 2 twos essentially.
Yeah.
They swapped first from 12 to 7 and gave up 2 twos, which is nothing. But again, in the grand scheme of all of this, and I think this is the most important takeaway, and maybe we shouldn't say this part now, but to me, the most important takeaway is that this is extreme. It works extremely rare. It is very rare that the trade up for the quarterback has worked, but it has worked a lot more recently. And I think those are the two most important things to consider in your head, is that there's a lot of garbage on this list we're about to discuss. There's a lot of garbage here. But in the last 4 or 5 years, you've gotten Lamar Jackson, you've gotten Josh Allen, and you've gotten Patrick Mahomes out of the deal. So it's the hit rate is getting a lot better. Is that just Andy Reid knowing how to evaluate Patrick Mahomes? I don't know. I don't know if it's, I don't know if there's anything we can describe to that or say that it's going to continue.
Okay, is the Goff trade worth it?
So they went from 15 to 1. They gave up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third. Jared Goff has started 100 football games. And he led them, and he got them to a Super Bowl. I would say
to a Super Bowl, and they were able to trade him to get Matt Stafford and then win a Super Bowl. So technically, they got a Super Bowl because they had Jared Goff.
My first reaction would be like, nah. But when you
Jared
put it like that,
pretty good in Detroit. Like maybe they kind of gave up on him a little sooner, a little too soon. But they wanted that Super Bowl. But in the end, they wouldn't have gotten Matt Stafford if they didn't have a Jared Goff to send in return.
So here's my question about Goff, and maybe Wentz to another degree. What category are those guys in? Because they're not superstars. They didn't win the Super Bowl specifically, but they're not even close to bust.
Goff will this year though. I guess I'd put Carson Wentz kind of like with where I think Trey Lance is going to end up. And if the Titans had traded up for Marcus as well, it's like the people whose careers got derailed by injury.
Okay. So like the RG3 group.
Yeah. That'd be good.
So here's the other group I would like to throw out there. The Jay Cutler group, which is a guy who's too good to really move on from, but he's too good to move on from, but not really good enough to win anything. He's got a lot of pure ability. Again, Jay Cutler started 153 games, got to an NFC Championship game. The Broncos in 06 went up from 15 to 11 to get him. So all they gave up was a 3rd round pick to go get him. Now he was better. Technically, he played longer for the Bears. But to me, Jay Cutler's just a guy. Like he's just an average NFL quarterback. And a lot of these guys sort of fall in the Jay Cutler category.
Can I ask you a question? How come nobody makes a pro comp of Will Levis and Jay Cutler?
That's actually really good.
I thought about this actually yesterday. I didn't get to bring it up on the show. I didn't get to bring it up on the show, but the personalities kind of remind you of each other, right? Yep. They have this weird personality about both of them, even though Will Levis is a little bit like kookier, I guess you could say. But they have Jay was more. Yeah, they have this off-putting aura about them.
They're bros.
Yeah, and they're then bros. Can't you see like Will Levis slinging it like Jay Cutler and being turnover prone like Jay Cutler? But in the end, he's just a guy, right? Like the ceiling for Will Levis's success, I feel like is capped at a Jay Cutler type.
That's actually pretty good. Like I would say they're both kind of bro-y. They're both about the same size. Will Levis is a little bit more athletic. They both have pretty big arms. I think Levis is probably they both were kind of liked in their locker room in college. If Will Levis got wasted and destroyed a phone booth in Lexington, then I would say they're carbon copies of each other. I think Levis is more committed to the game. I think Cutler's big issue is that he just didn't care. Like he just,
Yeah.
which is what made him a great reality TV star on Very Cavallari, one of my favorite characters in the history of reality TV.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. That's the only reason we watched it. It was just for Jay Cutler.
Amen. But I think Cutler's so like, let me go like total busts here. Ryan Leaf, total bust, but he's kind of too early for this. JP Lossman, total bust, played 33 games.
But hey, the Bills traded up for him. They don't need to listen. You draft all these quarterbacks. You got to quit drafting quarterbacks when you don't have success. That's what Titans fans are saying. And what did the Trent Edwards, EJ Manuel, and JP Lossman are 3 draft picks that the Bills have spent on. And you know what? They didn't quit. They didn't give up because you have to have a quarterback in this league.
Yeah. Well, the Browns are going to be a perfect example of this here in a second. The Browns traded up from 36 to 22 to draft Brady Quinn in 2007. He started 20 games. They traded the Broncos on here multiple times as well. They traded up in 2014 to draft Johnny Manziel, 26 to 22. He played 8 games. The Broncos have done it a bunch of times. They traded up for Cutler. They traded up for Tebow from 43 to 25. He started 16 games, but one of them was technically a playoff game. They also traded up from 31
Lamar
to 20.
Jackson, Tim Tebow, same amount of playoff games.
Wins, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wins. The Broncos traded up from 31 to 26 to draft Florida man Paxton Lynch, who has started a grand total of 4 games. Josh Rosen.
That is Will Levis's floor, by the way, is Paxton Lynch.
God, don't insult. That's even insulting to Will Levis.
That's insulting to Paxton Lynch.
The Arizona Cardinals moved from 15 to 10, gave up their first rounder, obviously, a 3rd and a 5th, to give Josh Rosen 16 career starts. So that's a total bust there. Those would be the quote unquote total busts, like guys that just had no business even being on a roster. Then there's just a guy. Sam Darnold has started 55 games. Clearly a bust.
He is not just a guy.
Okay, so there's another tier then.
I think he's a bust.
Okay.
He's a bust. Why would he not be a bust? He stinks, and they traded up for him.
I mean, I would agree. I would put him, if I had to, I'd put him in the bust category, but he's played a lot more games than.
Yeah, but playing games and being shitty at it is not a good barometer, right? I mean, like, okay, look at it this way. Drafting Sam Darnold, him busting for the New York Jets, led them to drafting Zach Wilson, him busting, which has led them to pursuing Aaron Rodgers and not even talking to the Green Bay Packers for like the last 2 weeks.
Great. It's great. All right. Mitch Trubisky, is he a total bust? Started
total
also
bust. Absolutely 55. A total bust.
Worst trade
starts to me are not a good barometer. It is what you did with those starts.
No, totally agree. And frankly, that was the worst trade in my opinion. 2 3s and a 4 to go up 1 spot to draft a guy.
For Mitch Trubisky was ridiculous.
For Mitch Trubisky, which absurd.
At the time, it was absurd. After the draft, it was absurd. Before the draft, it's absurd. Like, that was one of the most visually and objectively, unanimously absurd draft trades by everybody. I don't think anybody liked that trade.
Kyle Bowler, I think, is a total bust.
For sure.
41 up to 19, the Ravens, and gave up a 2nd and a 1st to get him in 03. Started 47 games. Terrible. Jason Campbell, is he just a guy or is he a bust?
He's the epitome of just a guy, because wasn't he in like the 18th or 20th draft pick or something?
25th pick. They traded up from the 3rd round to go get him. He started 79 games in the NFL career. So again, I think he had a
couple different stops here and there, but you're just kind of taking a chance, because if your next pick's in the 3rd, he's not going to be there in the 3rd.
Right.
So you kind of have to trade up to the 25th to get him. But like, I think he is definitely just a guy.
I think he's the border of bust and just a guy. Like, he's kind of the fringe, which is where I put this next guy, Josh Freeman, who's technically, they traded up 2 spots to get him, which I guess technically puts him on this list, but they gave up a 6th round pick, the Bucs did, in 2009 to get him. He did start 61 games for them, but
it's not really bust. I would just say
just a guy.
Just a trade. It's almost like it's just a trade.
Sanchez,
he gave up a 6th round pick,
which is nothing. Mark Sanchez, just a guy. But
he's not
3 AFC championships.
Yeah, he's not a bust because while we talked about it off air, while he's not the reason you went to 3 AFC championship games, him being able to just run the offense at average at best helped a lot and let the team go to work. Like, That's how they got to 3 AFC championship games. Like, he just did just enough, and 3 AFC championship games matter. How much did they end up giving up for Mark Sanchez? I never remember.
They gave up 3 players and a second-round pick to move from 17 to 5. So really, and I don't remember any of the names being all that special. It wasn't like all-pro left guard or whatever. Like, the names were not all that special, but they gave up 3 players and the second-round pick to go from 17 to 5, which is a big jump. He started 73 games for the Jets. They went to 3 AFC championships, the butt fumble, Rex Ryan, all the stuff that we know about him. I would call him below Jake.
They gave up Kenyon Coleman, Abram Elam, and Brett Ratliff.
There you go.
That was it. That's a pretty good trade.
I think so too. 2010 and a 12 pick jump into the top 5.
Yeah,
that's a big jump.
Bad.
Tim Tebow, we talked about.
Okay, let's break this down. So they were what, pick 12? Is that what it said?
17.
Okay, pick 17. So Titans are pick 11. Let's get up to pick 3 by doing these players. Okay, so we would need to give up Malik Willis. Who's our third safety?
Christian Fulton.
Yeah, Christian Fulton and defensive end Kenyon Coleman. I guess Rashad Weaver. You give those 3, and I think they also had to give up a second-round pick as well to go up to the first. Hey, or to go up to the third overall, I'd be all in.
So Rashad Weaver, Malik Willis, Christian Fulton, the 11th overall pick and the 41st overall pick, and you go from 11 to 3.
Yeah.
I think you do. Yeah, I think you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do it.
I think you do it, absolutely.
Tim Tebow, your first-round picks later on, so I mean, why not?
Blaine Gabbert from 16 to number 10 in the pick. They gave up a second-round pick, and that was it. He started 48 games. I would call him a bust.
Yes, for sure.
All right. RG3 in 2012. I think he would have been good if not injured. They went to the playoffs with him.
But you got to put him in the bust category because that matters. Injury matters, in my opinion.
I think so as well. And some of this is also where you went and did it, right? Like, again, Teddy Bridgewater, they went up from 40 to 32. That's a very different trade than going from 17 to 5. He started 60+ games. He's been I think he qualifies as just a guy because he's a good enough player to be a starting quarterback.
I thought that he got the raw deal in Minnesota when they let him go because he was putting up some numbers with Stephon Diggs.
Manziel bust in 14. Yeah. We talked about Paxton Lynch in 16 bust. We've talked a little bit about Goff and Wentz. I think they are above just a guy, but they are not on the Joe Flacco tier.
I'm not
up
sure
there.
Where to put Wentz, whether he's just a guy or if I think you got it. I think for the Eagles, he got them a Super Bowl win technically by what he did in the regular season. So to me, if I'm going to say that it's worth it for Joe Flacco, even though Joe Flacco gave him a ton more years, but it's mainly because of the Super Bowl, because that's really all you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get at least one Super Bowl out of the trade, and they got it.
And both of them got it technically. So yeah, I agree. So that's Goff and Wentz in 16, and then there's Trubisky, Mahomes, and Watson in 2017. Trubisky bust. Mahomes and Watson are what they are. We've talked about them.
We talked about those.
2018, there were 4 separate times somebody traded up. Sam Darnold, total bust. Josh Allen, superstar. Josh Rosen, total bust. Lamar Jackson is also in a sort of a different category, but technically I would put him in the superstar category. Then you got Jordan Love in 2020. And then in 2021, you had Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I think Fields is developing. 2022, there was no trades. So, I think the big takeaway here is that lots of teams have been trying it more often in the last 20 years, that it has worked for 5-star quarterbacks, and then 3 other times they got a Super Bowl out of the deal, right? The Rams, the Eagles, and the Ravens. So it's worth it, right? So you're talking about a third of the time you get either a star quarterback or a Super Bowl. If knowing that math, that 1 out of 3, you'll get either a superstar or a Super Bowl through various methods. And then the other 2 out of 3, you're probably getting 1, just a guy, or third option is total bust. So you have a 33% chance basically of getting just a guy, a total bust, or a star. What do you do? Does it change your opinion?
I'm always trading up. If I feel that I got the guy, like in this draft, I think it's Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. I have, at the earlier in the year, this is how I felt. I felt it was Bryce Young and nobody was close. And then I'd say I was very surprised Anthony Richardson, but I could see why that he came out, but I could see what people see in him. And then I was down on CJ Stroud. Then I kind of let Twitter's CJ Stroud love fest kind of infect my brain and my reasoning. and then I'm coming back down to earth, coming off the CJ Stroud cloud, as it were.
Ooh,
and I'm realizing that a low S2 score, which we can discuss S2 in just a little bit, that it's not, it predicts that the speed of the game is not too fast for the quarterback. So think about that. Malik Willis, the speed of the game is too fast. Now, a quarterback like Justin Fields, it's not too fast. The problem is everything else about being a quarterback for Justin Fields. And that's what it's going to be like for Will Levis, right? He's just going to make his bad decisions quicker. It's not going to be because the NFL's faster. It's just because he makes really bad decisions really quickly.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at on the Will Levis thing. But to go back to CJ Stroud.
But quickly, Elliot says Will Levis is Rex Grossman. What do you think about that?
It's pretty good. I mean,
that's a Super Bowl. They got to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you know, that's not going to happen in today's NFL because that was a defensive dominant performance. That doesn't really happen in today's NFL anymore.
I also Rex Grossman was also like 6 foot too.
Yeah,
like 6
Will
foot.
Levis born in the wrong generation. Like if Will Levis was like a 90s quarterback, everybody'd be all about him. He'd be great, but it's just not that time.
If Will Levis took over for Terry Bradshaw in Pittsburgh, everybody would love him.
So the CJ Stroud thing, so it's like low S2 score plus being horrendous under pressure in college. I mean, just horrible when he was pressured. He was piss poor. Minus the Ohio State surrounding cast plus the speed of NFL defenses just equals a big recipe for disaster for me and CJ Stroud. I'm back on the train. I'm not letting the one Georgia, because someone literally asked in my mentions, yeah, but I mean, what about that Georgia game? Do you think that's just an outlier? Well, that's the one game everybody could point to. And if that's the one game that you could point to out of the many games he's played, that's the very definition of an outlier.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, the odds of CJ Stroud being anything more than like, if you would call Ryan Tannehill just a guy, CJ Stroud is likely going to be just a guy, even though I think he's going to be a tier down below Ryan Tannehill. So that is why I am just kind of like, I don't know if I think it's Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young, and I'm staying away from every other quarterback.
So for the 6th show in a row, I will predict once again that Anthony Richardson is going to go number 1 overall. Elliot says, didn't Stroud have a trash S2 score? Thanks for listening. We just got done talking about this, Elliot. We love you, Elliot, but yes.
I will say this, since Lance Zierlein has already came out and said that he did not score well, I can't tell you what he scored because that violates a bunch of stuff, like the exact score. But I could tell you, I'll give you a range because these scores are percentiles, right?
Shitty.
Yeah. So the scores are percentiles. So when someone scores a 97, that means they are in the 97th percentile. They've scored better than 97% of quarterbacks in the NFL.
And Bryce Young was recorded at 98. It's been reported.
Yes.
He scored a 98.
Here's where I'm at on CJ Stroud. I will tell you this. If you could give like a F minus, like basically he failed.
Yeah.
If you would say that, I would say there is probably a range of, I'm going to overshoot the range. I'm going to overshoot his grade. Okay. So this is not his grade and he's not near this grade, but he is under 30th percentile.
You're doing a lot of tap dancing right now.
It was piss poor.
Will Levis,
very shitty.
What percentile was he in? The shitty percentile. By the way, Elliot, you said Grossman was horrible. That was not a compliment. I will say this. I think the comp
hate Will Levis.
Yeah, the reason I said that Grossman was better is because he actually, and I say this not because of their college careers are relevant, but that Grossman was a great college player. Will Levis was not. That is that's a difference right there on their resumes, and they're very different shaped and sized players. And one had success in the NFL. I think if Will Levis has Rex Grossman's career, I think he'll be happy with that, frankly. So I know what you're saying there. And again, Kenneth also says this: not enough people talk about CJ Stroud being surrounded by 4 first-round wide receivers and an elite offensive line, along with being the clearly most talented team on the field every time they took the field. They had a clear talent advantage over every single team they played, with the exception of playoff games. So just that matters to CJ Stroud and to Ohio State. So I think the long winding takeaway here is Anthony Richardson's going to go 1, Bryce Young's going to go 2. You better trust CJ Stroud if you're going to go up and get him at number 3. Like you better trust him. I don't think they do it.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up staying, and everybody's going to be really disappointed. But I think it is what it is at this point. If Anthony Richardson, what you got to hope for is that I am wrong and Will Levis goes number 1 overall. That's what you have to root for if you're the Tennessee Titans or CJ Stroud. I mean,
then trade up to number 3 right away.
Yeah.
So yeah. But again, the data is I think the data is pretty interesting. I may put some stuff together here and throw it out on Twitter or on the YouTube page or whatever to try to lay all this out, but because it is interesting to look at. But basically, since 2001, when Michael Vick was drafted, there's been 24 of these trades. A third of them have resulted in stars or Super Bowls. A third of them have been giant busts, and a third of them have been just a guy. So that's the information you need to work with when debating statistically what is the probability of the Tennessee Titans going up to draft a quarterback. What could happen? And it's kind of a third. And we wanted to dive into those numbers and give you guys some good, thoughtful, nutritional content as we do here on A Football Show. Brought to you by Sinkers and Kingston Group. Kingston Group, of course, buildkg.com is the website. If you have any questions about your house, you don't even need to use them. They will help steer you in the right direction. They are a community resource. Make sure you check them out, the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Sinkers, the defending champion, #1 liquor store in the city. Sinkers Beverages, of course. Search Uber Eats, Zach Lyons. Search Uber Eats.
They drive so you can drink.
Search Sinkers and have the booze delivered directly to your house. Of course, the tickets for the draft party, for those of you who are loyal listeners, I know a lot of you, Elliot, I know you're going to be there. Tim, I know you're going to be there. Joe's going to be there. I know a lot of you guys have already got some tickets, but there's only like 10 left. So if you want, the tickets are in the Facebook show notes, the YouTube show notes, and in the comment section on YouTube as well. So there's your link. We're not distributing it just yet. We want to make sure you guys who are loyal to the show get opportunity to come hang out with us first. It's all going to be for charity, open bar. The food's catered by Jasper's. It's going to be a fun night, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll do a live show when the Titans go on the clock and some giveaways and some other stuff as well. So big night coming up on April 27th, 2 Thursdays from now. So otherwise, I think that's about it. Zach, check out Stacking the Inbox. Check out F Words Pod. Check out all the other great shows from the 440 Sports Network. Zach, any parting words?
I will say this. I've been writing about these wide receivers and comparing them like two-tone blue dudes, comparing them to like Titans draft history with San Francisco and the Rams sprinkled in. I regret the format I have chosen to do this in and spreading and like focusing in on many different ones. So for next year, I'm already prepping what I'm going to do. And in fact, tomorrow's article is going to be a lot different than the previous articles in the fact that I have revamped the formula, but I'm never going to do simple, like 1-by-1 profiles ever again, because I don't have time to get to all the other positions I want to get to. And I've really taken up a chunk of my time doing the data. But Quentin Johnston is so far, I only have like 5 or 6 left. Quentin Johnston is the highest scoring two-tone blue dude.
Interesting.
He's closest to a Titans-like wide receiver.
Oh, I see what you mean. I follow you now. From a comp standpoint, I got you.
Yeah. For basically taking all the data of all the receivers drafted since John Robinson and Ran Carthon has been in the Rams, Quentin Johnston is the closest to being exactly what they want. He's almost got a score of 100.
And knowing the Titans draft history at wide receiver, I hope they don't take him, knowing that information.
Please do not listen to me. Listen, if I was working for the Titans and I was doing this analysis and, doing these grades, doing all these formulas, because I've been correcting them as I go and changing them. And I came to Quentin Johnston and they said, "What's his score?" I would lie. Because the film is just not there for me. I just can't do it.
It's not consistent enough for me. I think he's got some ability, but it's not
consistent.
And
that's what you guys need in the Titans for an office is someone that's willing to lie because they have conviction.
Yeah, there you have it. All right, so F Word, Stacking the Inbox, all the other great shows, Sinkers, Kingston Group, all you great listeners. We love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We do appreciate it. For Zach, I am Braden. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will talk to you next week.